Hi, you're watching Connected Digital World. My name's Toby Evan-Jones, producer at Codemasters, and we're here to talk about Grid Autosport.
Andrew from Connected Digital World here. Grid Autosport, the next game in the Grid franchise, is about to be released. I got a chance to sit down with the game's producer to talk all things Grid. Apologies for the sound in the background. We were basically sitting in a big trailer in the middle of a racetrack. And there's quite a lot of new gameplay footage in there too, so enjoy. Thank you for joining us.
No worries.
So tell us a little bit about Grid Autosport.
So it's a game that's followed on from Grid 2, which you may be familiar with. Essentially, the Grid franchise has been very close to our hearts for a number of years in the racing studio. The original Grid was what really sort of made an impact. Really, went down so well. BAFTA award-winning, critically acclaimed, Metacritic very high. Since then, it's been sort of a franchise that we've absolutely wanted to keep that quality level in, push on. So Grid 2 obviously followed the original Grid. Towards the end of Grid 2, I'd say that there was a lot of stuff that the community sort of were really on board with, really enjoyed, and wanted us to push onwards, such as touring car content and other things. There was also actually a lot of stuff that the development team wanted to include as well that we weren't quite able to get around to. But we originally didn't plan to roll straight onto Autosport, but at the end of Grid 2, everyone was so keen to get these new ideas in there and new tech in there that we thought, do you know what, we'll just roll with it. So we carried on exactly the same team, rolled straight through. We thought, while we're fresh in the code base, rather than taking a break, maybe looking at dirt, which is what we've done sort of previously, we tend to alternate. But rather than have a break, we'll just keep these ideas fresh while they're here. We'll just plough straight through with Autosport. So a lot of technical innovation's gone in there. We've sort of got 16 cars on track now rather than 12, because we've really been able to optimise that stuff. Been able to optimise to bring the head cam back in, add lots of new and exciting content like touring car. The approach we've taken to splitting the race disciplines means that we've been able to put a lot more character into the cars that race in each type of discipline, rather than have a sort of one-size-fits-all kind of handling model. So it's been a game that everyone's been in the studio's been really excited about. So we're happy, obviously, to bring it out now.
So apart from all that, what else is new in the game?
I'd say there are probably the breadth of content in terms of the driving styles is something that we've really pushed on this time. Just how it feels to race in the different race types. So drift cars, we've taken a very authentic approach this time. Real world drift cars have welded up rear differential, so just brake traction instantly, on the drop of a hat. You wouldn't be able to take a drift car into a regular race or a touring car race or a grip drive race and compete. But by splitting the disciplines out means we've been able to really get that depth of content in the drift discipline and also the other disciplines. So open wheel cars, very much about grip and aerodynamics. So, but that's fine this time around because they're dedicated as an open wheel dedicated discipline. So we can get that hardcore grip drive mechanic in there, and again across endurance and the other areas. So I think that's something the team have been really excited about, rather than trying to make one car work for everything.
Okay, so there are actually 5 disciplines, aren't there, in the game?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about those?
Sure. Yes, you've got a touring car, which is something the community were really shouting for from Grid 2. Again, very aggressive driving, closed bodywork, closed wheel, very tight pack racing, lots of shunts that go on. So people that follow touring car will know exactly what I'm on about, and that's very exciting. So we've got that in there. We've got street racing, which has been sort of a mainstay from the original Grid. So we've brought back some classic circuits like Washington, brought some additional city streets in there. It's very much about tighter 90-degree turns, driving sort of production road-going cars, your Audis, your BMWs, things that you might see in street racing. So that's represented. The community might want to make sure that we carry that through all the way. You've got the open wheel racing, which is touched upon, sort of Formula 3 cars, about slipstreaming, picking the right racing line, picking the overtake opportunities, being very tactical about your driving style. You've got the drift racing, which we're obviously here talking about today. This is an incredibly different style of racing. The skills that you use to brake traction, to then balance the throttle and the steering to maintain a drift past the apex, use the width of the track on the exit to score points. It's quite an acquired taste. Initially you need to learn and get the hang of it. Depending on your driving style, you might use the handbrake to brake traction, or you might just power oversteer or try and weight shift the car. There's a lot of depth there as to how you drift, but it's incredibly rewarding when you get it right. Just now the apex, get a beautiful drift on the go. especially if they're two cars on track, as it usually is, tandem drift up to two cars. Just hours in the replays, just watching it back, and uploading videos to YouTube. So it's awesome. It feels very different to the rest. And then you've got endurance racing, so the final entry, which is about long races. So it's about, again, a very tactical type of racing where tyre wear is incredibly important due to the length of the race, and you need to either conserve your tyres and be sensible at the start, set some safe lap times. Then you'll have the traction towards the end of the race to push hard, brake late in the corners, try and get past those race leaders and make up the win. Or again, you can race off the line, drift around some corners, brake very late, wear your tyres, and get that pole position. But then you're going to need to start worrying about everyone that's on your rear bumper towards the end of the race trying to get past you, and you haven't got any traction left, so you destroy the tyres. So you're trying to keep it on the track at that tail end, so stepping out. So real depth there. Yeah.
So probably the biggest criticism you guys took for Grid 2 was the removal of the cockpit.
Yeah.
And that's back.
That's back. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's sort of essentially it's a result of where we are in the current console generation. We're getting every bit of processing power that there is to be had. We know this hardware inside out now. For Grid 2, there are certain systems that the team really wanted to improve. Mostly it was the track streaming technology that we've implemented in the Ego engine, which allows us to stream the track textures and everything in real time as we're racing. It allows us to have much longer races, and also allows us to put much more detail in the textures that you can see, because then it dumps those off and streams them in as you're going around the track. That required additional memory. We were already on the limit of what we could do, so something had to give. We looked at all the stats and figures. It looked like a small number of people actually used cockpit cam as their constant viewport. Lots of people switch in and out. But because of the figures that we looked at, we made the choice to sacrifice that so that we could bring in the track streaming tech and the rest. There are obviously a lot of people that love cockpit cam. So
the most vocal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were obviously shouting for it back. So it was one of the first things that we looked at, following Grid 2. With additional time, we're able to optimise the systems further, eke out the additional bits that here and there to bring it back in. We obviously wanted to put a bit of extra love into it as well as we're bringing it back from Grid 1. So the art team started looking at what we could do to stylise it and make it a bit more immersive. So we started from the sort of depth of field effect that sort of draws your eye outside the track, makes the cabin feel a bit more claustrophobic. That's quite exciting. So we've layered that on as well.
And will there be next gen, or current gen now, versions of the game?
Well, I wouldn't commit to sort of next gen versions of Grid Autosport, because that's a game that we wanted to put out now. There was so much in there that the development team had really wanted to get out to the public. Lots of stuff that the community have been shouting for as well, and we've been able to achieve it all on current gen. So we don't want to wait and indefinitely. We wanted to get it out now because it's something that we want to get out to the world. But that doesn't mean, I don't mean that we're not looking at current gen. Actually, we are. We've got a team at Codemasters at the moment looking at the Ego engine and preparing it for next/current gen, and they're working on that at the moment. But it's going to take a certain amount of time to get it to the stage where we're happy as a racing studio that it's going to make a real hit when we put a game out on it. And we don't want to rush and port it over and be first to market just to try and tick the box. We want to release something that really plays to the strengths of that hardware and is something special that really pushes the boundaries. That's what we did with the original Grid. I mean, we weren't first out on 360 or PS3, but when we dropped it, it made a big hit because it was such a leap forward in comparison to the other racing games that were around at that time. We'll do exactly the same thing on next gen. So we're in no rush, but we're getting there.
That's cool. So again, one of the things that the fans really loved about the previous games are achievements and trophies. So what have you done for Grid Autosport?
We've got a really wide range of achievements and trophies actually. I mean, previously on Grid 2 we worked with website X360 Achievements to actually draft up the achievements. That relationship worked quite well. This time though we've pulled it back in-house. We've got our own design team sort of dedicated to writing those achievements and trophies. So I think we've got a really good spread in there.
Care to share any of your favourites?
I think that they're still confidential because when I left the studio we were having the discussion about whether to put them live or not on Steam and the others, because as soon as we put them live online people can then go and see what they are. So I believe they haven't been set live yet, so I'll be shocked if I start talking about what they are.
So let's talk a little bit about the difference between single player and online mode. Do you want to talk a little bit about both?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, one thing that we've learned over the years of making racing games is that people play very differently if they're offline, sitting in their living room, compared to if they're online playing against the world. And they want very different things from a racing game in both scenarios. In online, people really want to have that car ownership and that bond with the vehicles and the customisation, and essentially putting their personality into a car to represent themselves online. So we knew we wanted to maintain that and build upon it, and add sort of additional layers there of having finite garage slots. You can only own a certain number of vehicles, which builds the bond that you have with them, the customisation. So that's why we just separated off and branched off completely, so that we can tailor to that audience for online, do some stuff that's really enjoyable, so with the racing at clubs, things we expect that to be really good. For offline, we wanted to look at what we can do to make a bit more narrative in there, a bit more story mode. So obviously we came up with this idea of a career where you accept offers from teams, so it draws the player in a bit more, gives them a bit more choice. They get to choose the teammates they race with, have the teammate instructions. That's only in the single player career. So it's different aspects and features there to tailor to those guys and how they want to play.
You mentioned RaceNet. What's new now for Grid Autosport?
So the big new one is the RaceNet clubs. The functionality that we developed previously we've carried forward into Autosport, but clubs is the really big hitter for us, the big addition. Something that the community have been talking about for a long while, and it's something that we've wanted to do for a while as well, just to really get that social aspect sort of covered. Essentially you can go online, log on to RaceNet, create your own club, and give it a presence online, and invite your friends to join, or anyone can apply to join the club, or you can go online and seek out a club to join yourself. Essentially the owner of the club has the ability to create the club's livery, and they do that in-game in the livery editor. They create a fully customised livery, and they click the button and upload it to RaceNet, sends it up to RaceNet, and that becomes the club's identity. The livery is displayed on the website so that you can see, you can identify the club. And then anybody that's a member of that club, when they boot up the game, whether on console or PC, and go to play online, the game recognises that they're a member of the club and automatically syncs down the livery and the other information. They can view their club members within the game and go and join them in race if they like. And essentially how they then choose to compete for their club is via the livery select. So if they just want to have a blast and be themselves, they can choose one of their own customised liveries. If they want to race for their club, then they choose to apply their club livery to that vehicle for that race. And all the time that they're racing in their club's colours, they're contributing to their club's performance online. So then you have the club leaderboards. Certain clubs might specialise in drift, certain clubs might specialise in open wheel racing, and all the time you're racing for your club, you're contributing to that. There'll be the forums online, just have the banter going on between different clubs. It should be a really good feature.
What's been the biggest challenge for you guys for this game?
I'd say the biggest challenge is probably where we are on the current generation of 360 PS3. Having developed for this generation for a number of years, all the fresh ideas that we have in the studio become harder and harder to implement because we're at the absolute limit. We're getting everything possible from this architecture. So that's a real challenge. Luckily it's the really technical programming guys that need to worry about that. We come up with the big ideas and say, come on guys, you
do this.
Exactly, yeah. But they've done really, really well for Autosport. I mean, obviously they've got headcam back in, they've made improvements to the visual fidelity in terms of texture quality. On PC we've got 4K textures in now, whereas we had 2K previously. That's an optional download, so it means that it's phenomenal visually. We've actually, one of the big hits we made as well for Autosport is we've got 16 cars on track now as opposed to 12, which we had previously. And that makes actually a big difference, particularly in the touring car events where the pack's very tight-knit, very close together. To have 16 cars in a tight pack all just in the position of nudging is awesome. So to be able to claw back the memory to do that has been a big challenge, but they've achieved it.
Excellent. Any plans for post-release content, DLC, extra cars, that sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely. We're looking at that at the moment. I mean, obviously we've got a focus on next gen, seeing what we can do there, but we definitely don't want to take the eyes off Autosport. We're going to keep a very strong team on Autosport, working with the community. So there'll be a very strong patch program there if people want changes or adjustments. Get online on the forums and feedback, and all our guys are there, reading the comments. Certain changes will be fed into the patches and have been in the past as a result of that feedback. On the DLC front, we'll definitely be developing new content as well. So whatever people are shouting for on the forums, we'll look at that and take that into consideration. We're going to keep a team definitely on Autosport to develop ongoing content.
And if people want to get involved in the forums, where do they go?
Codemasters.com as a start. and I believe there'll be a link to the forums.
So, when's the game out and on what formats?
So the game releases at the end of June, and it'll be on Xbox 360, PS3 and PC.
Thanks very much for your time today.
No problem, pleasure.